we could have a better package at a better price, but we're not going to buy that from someone that we haven't connected with at an emotional level.
Story of my life. Most of my decisions are made emotionally and they're not very good.
That's because you're human. You're human. This is not a bad thing, right?
Paul Green's MSP Marketing Podcast.
Another Byte.
Hello, I'm Sophie Law and welcome to Another Byte. This is the YouTube show for MSPs who want to improve their marketing and grow their business. Every week we go through another episode of Paul Green's MSP Marketing Podcast. This week we're talking episode 135. I feel, Paul, like I should have bought some like rah-rah pom-pom cheerleader things to go, it's sales week, it's sales week, woo-woo!
You've just done a jingle for it.
There we go.
That'll do it. We can use that. It's sales week. Maybe James, the producer, could turn that into a little song for us.
Oh, no, now he's going to, isn't he? It's sales week, it's sales week, woo, 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 woo. Horrible. Anyway, lots of great tips in, just in sales week generally. Just explain briefly what you mean by having a sales week.
So a sales week is something you invent and just decide to do because you need the money or you want the money or you just want to, give yourself some focus. Do you remember a few weeks ago we talked about doing a ticket frenzy? Mm-hmm. And a ticket frenzy obviously has nothing to do with sales. It's where you kind of get some pizzas in, put some loud music on, and you and all of your technicians throw yourself into the PSA and just get a load of tickets cleared. And in doing so, you can achieve a whole load of stuff in a few hours because you're focused on it. Sales week, exactly the same thing.
Although there's those awkward, it's also about, it reminded me a lot of you on Tinder, making those awkward reconnections after a little bit of time apart was what you were talking about.
I've come off Tinder. I haven't been on Tinder for weeks and weeks and weeks.
Terrible news for the female race.
I know. Anyway, well, I'll give you another dating update another time.
Okay.
But so back to sales weeks, which is what most people want to hear about and not Tinder. Sales weeks. So you at any point you'll be sat on a whole bunch of leads that you haven't really done anything with, prospects that you haven't really followed up with. That guy I should have called to 3 weeks ago, or I know this person's contract's coming to an end in 3 months. I really should pick up the phone. So you declare to yourself, it's a sales week, and I'm gonna clear my diary, do as little else as I can, and I'm just going to focus on getting us up to speed. Now, the reality is 52 weeks of the year should be sales weeks, but that's the ideal to work towards. I like to live in the real world where the MSP owner is busy and they've got 5,000 other priorities that are demanding attention. So I would say schedule a sales week now and again to catch up and just sort of stir the pot. Half of the fun of selling is it's about timing, so selling is about having good marketing, connecting with lots of people, having lots of conversations, qualifying them well, but ultimately it comes down to luck and timing because people only buy from an MSP once every 5 to 7 years. They stick with someone for years and years. So you could have a great conversation with someone and be really engaging with them. They're engaged with you, but then they're just not ready to buy this year, next year, or the year after. So a lot of it, if it's down to luck and timing, the more conversations you're having, the faster your luck will pay off.
And in those conversations, you were talking about some of the things to say, which I really quite enjoyed. Things like imagining a probably quite harrowing 24 hours without the internet if you're a business, which affected me quite deeply. And the other thing, like asking questions about how often you back up. I think it's a little bit like asking people how often they change their sheets. They want to say once a week. In reality, we all know that's not true.
I change my sheets once a week.
I don't.
Don't you?
Mm-mm.
Don't you?
No.
Stinky Sophie will now call you. Go and Google it. It's to do with sweat. That's why you want to change your sheets every week. But no, you're absolutely right. Backups, completely one of those things that people I don't know if lying or fibbing, or they just don't know.
I just think they don't want to admit the honest truth, do they? Because it's probably not good.
No, I completely agree. And I remember 15 years ago, I shared an office with an accountant, a CPA, just a tiny little firm. We were two little firms and we shared an office space. And I remember watching that they had like an apprentice. On a Friday afternoon, the apprentice was copying all the files onto a hard drive. And I said, what are you doing? And she said, oh, that's our backup. We do it every Friday afternoon. And even back then, before I was involved in this kind of world, I was thinking, well, we do ours every day. Because what if it all goes wrong on Friday morning? This was the funniest bit. She then left the hard disk in her desk drawer, which I just thought was absolutely hilarious. So they had the backup on the same size. But that's, and as much as you and I find that funny, I bet every MSP watching this will have had clients and prospects doing worse. Doing a backup once a month and leaving it on site, not in a fireproof safe.
So it's a great way to make an emotional connection, basically, with someone and be
completely.
Because I'm sure you must have heard the story about Toy Story 2 or Toy Story 3, where that was saved by the woman on maternity leave who happens to have a copy of it when it got wiped at work. She had a copy at home. I mean, come on, that's legendary.
I know, it's an amazing story. It was corrupted, wasn't it? It was a corrupted file, and they wiped out the whole of the film near the end. And you're right, it was one woman who, and didn't they send like the police to escort her in?
Yes.
Like wrapping the machine in bubble wrap, because there was essentially 2 years of work.
So precious.
On one machine, on one laptop.
Yeah.
It's an awesome story. It really is.
And those emotional decisions you were talking about, like, brain versus heart, when you make the decisions about what you're buying and sales and things. And I love what you were saying about repeating people's words back to them and how that works, which, let me tell you, worked very well for me in my German exam, because I took the title of the essay, switched it round, and they complimented me on my use of complicated German. And I was like,
is that true?
Literally just copied what you gave me. They gave me an A.
That's brilliant.
Boom.
That's brilliant.
But, in terms of, so that really works, repeating people's words back to them.
It does work, and as you were saying that, I was trying to pick out some words that I could say back to you. But I knew you'd be looking out for that.
I would.
No, it's a psychological principle called mirroring, and there's something called NLP, which you may have come across. It's called neuro-linguistic programming. I've never done NLP because I believe actually we have NLP. It's called our gut feel. It's called our gut intuition, and I don't want to go and learn something that actually I can do as a natural human ability. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. It's just, that's just my personal choice. But I know one of them is mirroring. And I know you were talking about Tinder earlier. I was on a date a couple of years ago with a lovely woman I'm not going to name.
Did it go well?
No one you know. Well, I'm not with her now, so it didn't go that well, did it? So, but I noticed at one point, we were just sitting chatting. It was just like in a restaurant. And I noticed that I had my leg crossed and my foot was pointing towards her. And I think my hands were just in my lap. And I remember looking at her and thinking, oh my goodness, she's mirroring my posture. So she was sitting, almost like the mirror image of me, with her foot, her leg over her leg and whatsoever. And that was the point I thought, actually, things are going quite well here, because she subconsciously, without realizing it, was matching my behavior. And it's a similar kind of thing. And actually, you can manipulate this in a sales environment. So such as, if the person you're sitting with, if you notice that they're mirroring you, that their body language is the same as yours, this is a great thing. Whereas if you're sitting there, with one leg over another and your hands in your lap, and they're sitting there with their arms folded or doing that, they're not mirroring you. It means they're not quite so much in connection with you. So something like taking the words that they say and giving them back to them, it makes them at an emotional level think, oh, this person understands me. They get me. And that's what it's all about. All of sales is engagement and connection. It's really got very little to do with what you're saying and the technical stuff and the price and the package. And these things are important because the brain does look at those things, but you remember the brain is only 20% of the buying decision. 80% of it is the heart and the emotions. And ultimately, we could have a better package at a better price, but we're not going to buy that from someone that we haven't connected with at an emotional level. And as business owners, we think we're smarter than we are. We think we're making cognitive decisions, but actually we're making emotional decisions. And most B2B decisions are made emotionally.
Story of my life. Most of my decisions are made emotionally, and they're not very good.
That's because you're human. You're human. This is not a bad thing, right? In fact, it's when we overthink things that things go wrong.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah. Okay, other things you will hear this week on episode 135 of Paul Green's MSP Marketing Podcast are the very exciting sounding super MSPs. Nothing to do with Marvel, but equally as exciting. Also, Paul, you owe me a Snickers because you suggested this week on the podcast that you call 50 old prospects and you get at least one sale. I tried that with 50 ex-boyfriends and it did not work.
What, you've only got 50 ex-boyfriends? I thought you had many more.
Obviously, I have nowhere near that many.
I'll send you a Snickers.
Good. I'm going to hold you to that. Thank you. You can join us next week again for another episode of Another Byte.
Paul Green's MSP Marketing Podcast.
Another Byte.